What up, though, One Pride? This is the Roar of the Lions UK podcast, the podcast where One Pride goes worldwide. My name is Antony Fitzpatrick, and this is a Tuesday evening, and this is the college football podcast, questions and answers. I am so used to doing the intro with Ryan in there as well. When I don't have Ryan with me, that has just completely thrown me off. I have my intro up and ready to go, and he's not part. But yeah. Hope you are all doing well this evening. I said this is the College Football Podcast. We are doing a Q&A this evening. So if you don't know, Ryan is currently on holiday. He's gone to the land of the rising sun in Japan. He looks like he's having a whale of a time there. Him and his missus posting up tons of photos. But yeah, he's having fun. But he's away for the week. And I didn't want to start doing a conference preview last week and not be able to finish it with him this week. So I thought, you know what? We'll just do a little bit of a Q&A today on college football. Because actually, this is the fourth season of this show. And I don't think we've ever just sat and done a Q&A before. Usually we have something planned, something to do. So I thought we'll just chill, take it easy, and see what comes our way. I've had a few questions in which I have pre-answered. I can see you there, Lisa. I've got more than one answer for that edge question there, but I just didn't want to give too much away on the LNU show. But don't worry, I've done my work on that. I've got about 5 or 6 questions I've had pre-submitted to the show, so I've researched them. I'm going to answer those. If there's anything you want to ask me during the course of the evening, then do so. I will get round to answering as many questions as I can. If I can't do it on the night, then I will research them for future shows. So don't worry about that. Sometimes I just can't answer a question off the snap of the bat, but we'll see. Anywho, let me just get all the housekeeping bits out the way and we'll crack on with this thing. So, Roar of the Lions UK Discord, if you want in on that, just let us know. I will fire you across a link for that. The main podcast was yesterday, and we kind of did similar yesterday. We sort of just did a Q&A show. Normally, we research shows. We have tons of stuff put together, but it was actually nice yesterday. We just had a show where we chatted with everyone in the chat, answered some questions, had good fun, and then we spent about an hour at the end figuring out which Star Wars characters were people in the NFL and stuff like that. It was absolutely hilarious. So if you've not checked it out, then please do go and do that. Don't forget to like and sub to everything, all that good stuff. Don't forget about Lions Nation Unite, Herman Moore's pet project to bring together the best in content creators for the Lions on YouTube. I know I saw some of you in the stream there earlier. It's good fun, and there's going to be a lot of content creators actually start to do work on that channel now, including myself. So you'll see videos and bits on there. It's going to be good fun. That's about to get big in the biggest way possible. Don't forget, we're a Twitch affiliate, monetized on YouTube, all that good stuff. If you want to help us that way, great. But we just love having you in the building. We just love talking ball. There's feedback form as well. So if you want to fill that in, any constructive criticism or likes about the show, then yeah, just let us know. Right, that's all out the way. Let's just give a shout out to everyone who's in the building. So I've seen Lisa in there. Brent is in there as well. Hope you two are both doing well. I've got your questions answered that you asked of me, so we will go through those as the evening goes on. Danny Mac on Twitch has subscribed at tier 1, been subscribed for 9 months. Really appreciate that. Let's talk Razorbacks to me, Ant-Man. We'll talk some Arkansas football in a little bit. It's I'm not screwed up on them this year because KJ Jefferson has transferred to UCF, but still do love me some Razorbacks. Still always looking at their draft prospects because it is a school I very much love. Right, there's a little bit of news just to go through before we start with the questions. So, big news. The state of college football has officially now changed forever. July the 1st, yesterday, was when all the conference realignments were confirmed. All the teams have now moved, and life as we know it in college football will not be the same. We are now officially on to the 12-team playoffs, all that good stuff to come going forward. So for any of you who might not have known about all the realignments, I'm just going to go through them here, just give you an overview. So in terms of the group of 5, the CUSA, they've got one new member, the Kennesaw State Owls. They're coming up from the FCS. The Sun Belt is the only conference that's not changed a thing this year. It's still 14 teams, still the same teams, still got divisions. The American, that has lost a team and gained a team. It's 14 strong, so SMU have left. The Army Black Knights, Brent's Army Black Knights, are now in the American. In terms of the MAC, concerning a lot of the teams in and around Detroit, that area of the world. No new teams, but they've scrapped their divisional format, so it's just one big conference now. Best two teams go through to the championship game. And then with the Mountain West, no change in terms of teams or layout there either, but they are now in their union with the Pac-2. So we talked about this on our last preview show. Washington State, Oregon State, they're now in a very loose alliance with the Mountain West. So it's technically 14 teams in there at the moment, but just 12 official teams. And then when it comes to the Power Four, because it is the Power Four now, this is where all the changes come. So in the Big 12, that's now 16 teams big. Newbies in there are Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and Arizona State. Of course, they lost Texas and Oklahoma. The ACC is now 17 teams. It's got 3 new teams in there. So you've got Cal and Stanford arriving from the now defunct Pac-12, and you've got SMU who've arrived from the American. The SEC, that's up at 16 teams. You've got 2 new ones, Texas and Oklahoma, coming in from the Big 12. They have also scrapped their divisions, so it's just going to be the best 2 teams in the SEC now getting through to their championship game. And then we end with the biggest conference of them all, the Big 10. That is now 18 teams big. So you've got UCLA, USC, Oregon, and Washington all arriving from the defunct Pac-12. And no more divisions. So hopefully in future, we're going to get exciting Big Ten championship games, not Michigan/Ohio State versus whoever's been good in the East. So yeah, that's everything in terms of your realignment. Everything is changing, as I say, 12 teams going into the playoffs. We will do predictions for which teams we think are going to get there. But yeah, life is not going to be the same again. Other little bits of news concerning Notre Dame, because we did their preview the other day, talked about one of their oldest and, well, not biggest rivalries, but one of their oldest rivalries with the Michigan State Spartans. Well, that series has been renewed. So in 2026, they're going to play a fixture in South Bend, home of Notre Dame. And then in 2027, they are going to return the fixture in East Lansing. So the Megaphone Trophy, the trophy they play over, which is literally a megaphone, that is going to be played for the first time since, I think, 2017, so there's been a little bit of a gap, but yeah, Michigan State, Notre Dame, the rivalry is reigniting. Maybe we're going to see a push from Notre Dame to the Big Ten. If they're reigniting these rivalries here, we will see there. And then the last bit of news actually came out today. Technically, with it being the new league season, it's our first head coach casualty, but yeah, Blake Anderson is out of the building at Utah State. They've put him on gardening leave. He's not coming back. And the defensive coordinator there, Nate Dreiling, he is going to be the new head coach. Now, I don't want to speculate what's going on there at the minute, but there's some pretty serious stuff getting rumored around the mill. So we'll wait and see what happens there before reporting what's gone on. But I hope it's nothing too bad with him. Yeah, he's lost a wife to cancer and a kid to suicide. He's a really easy guy to root for, Blake Anderson. So I'm hoping it's nothing majorly serious of what's gone off there, but I don't know. We'll see. So those are all the little bits of news I wanted to go through first. So we're just going to sort of dive down into the Q&A here now. So as I say, if you've got anything to ask whilst I'm doing this, then go ahead. Right, we're going to go into some of the pre-asked questions first. So the first, actually from Brent. So he's in the chat there. I think this one was asked the other week. But he goes, I'll be watching UMass a little closer now after hearing your takes last week. So what's your prediction on their record? So Brent obviously referring to our Pac-2 and Independence show that we did this time last week. UMass, I like to try and be positive about all the teams when we're doing these previews. It's a new slate for everybody. You want to give optimism to the teams going forward. For anyone who didn't listen to that or watch that, UMass, they're not as bad as a team as people make them out to be. They were 1-11. They're in the third year of Don Brown there now. He took over when they were 1-11. They were a poor team. They won 3 games last year. There are a couple of one-score games in there. So they're getting better as a team. You've got Tyson Fomachan, the former high-star recruit from Clemson, the quarterback who lost his way in college football. He had a bit of a stop-start season for them last year, was dealing with a few injuries, but critically, he's got starting experience now, and he looked decent in spurts for them. They had a 1,000-yard rusher. They've lost him, but they got a rusher up there. He'd not done anything previously. They've got in some good transfers. They've got in some good receivers there. Offensive line's not too bad. It's the defensive line where it's going to be for them. They need sacks and they need to stop the run against them. Those are the two big issues there. But an incredibly talented secondary with a lot of really good players brought in from the FCS level there. They are able to turn these guys into stars. So I'm quietly optimistic about what this team can do this year. So the schedule, um, I've got them going 5-7. I'm just going to put that this way now, just short of a bowl game because they have a rotten second half of the season. I can't see them winning 6 in this. So they start at home to Eastern Michigan. As much as I love the Crate Train, they nearly beat them at Eastern Michigan last year. They've got them at home this year. I see them winning that. On the road to Toledo, I've got them losing. On the road to Buffalo in the MAC, I've got them winning because Buffalo have not really been up to much recently. They're at home to Central Connecticut. It's FCS. I would hope they can win that game. Away at Miami of Ohio, who were in the championship game for the MAC last year. I've got them losing that. But then I've got them winning on the road to Northern Illinois, who are another team who've sort of been treading water these last few years. Then they're at home to Missouri from the SEC. They're not going to win that. Then they're on their bye. They're at home to Wagner, FCS opposition again, so I would hope they can win that. That's their 5th win there. But then they finish away at Mississippi State from the SEC, at home to Liberty, who won the CUSA, away at Georgia in the SEC, and then they play UConn at home as well. I mean, they could split that UConn game. That could be number 6 if they can win the others, but I'm a big fan of what Jim Moore is doing at UConn, and I want them to make a bowl game as well this year. So I've got UConn with with the win on the road there. So yeah, Brent, I've got them going 5-7, but I just think there is a little something about that UMass team that might be intriguing to watch this year. And the MAC teams on a whole, I think, will struggle with them. So hopefully that comes to fruition. Yeah, I've got them at 5-7 UMass for the year. Moving it on. And now we'll move on to one of Lisa's questions, which she asked me last week on the end of the chat, and I slightly answered earlier on the LNU stream. She goes, who will be the best edge prospects next year for the 2025 NFL draft? So I just want to quickly start by saying this is prospects for next year for the draft, not necessarily who my top 5 are in college right now, because some of them, like there'd be honorable mentions to guys like Ruben Bain Jr. at the Miami Hurricanes. He had an outstanding freshman season last year, and he's going to be an absolute monster at the next level. But he's not going to be declaring this year because it's just going to be a second season. So these are the 5 who I think will be the better edge prospects in the room next year. So starting off, number 1, there's only one place to start here. James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee. Now, when I say how good this guy could be, if the quarterbacks don't work out so well this year, here is a prospective number 1 overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft. He is 6'5", 242 pounds, a freak athlete. So he had a pick 6 last year. He registered 23 miles per hour on the field when he got up to top speed, returning that thing. The guy is absolutely rapid, as they would say. He's pure dominance. Like his speed to power conversion, he just destroys anything that stands in his path. His pressure rate was over 21% last year, which was 3rd best in the FBS in 2023. 13 sacks, 11 quarterback hits, 14 and a half tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles. And you know the really scary part about him? He doesn't really have a pass rush repertoire yet. It's just like his game is straight up, I'm stronger than you, I'm faster than you, you know exactly what's coming as an offensive tackle, but I'm still going to beat you because I'm just that dominant. It's how fast he plays. It's like he's shot out of a cannon. every single play, and he's relentless. The motor never stops, and you just see tackles just they cannot deal with him. The even scarier part about him as well is he was just a sophomore last year, only his second year. It was his first year as a starter. He's not even begun to tap into his potential yet. So, with that comes problems. It's his first year. He's got work to do against the run. He had a 24% missed tackle rate, which you kind of want to come down a little bit. But again, first year, things like that are commonplace as you're getting your technique, you're learning how to play the game. He needs to incorporate more finesse into his pass rush, and eventually the dominating bull rushing style will get found out. But again, that's going to come naturally with time and training. Those are issues you'd expect with first year starters, but his ceiling is so high, it can't even be seen. There is every chance he might be the first volunteer to go #1 overall since Peyton Manning. That's a long time ago, but he's just an absolute freak of nature, and I love watching him play. And he's going to be way out of Detroit's reach unless something crazy bad goes on next year. But yeah, that's potentially a #1 overall pick for you there. Next up, because I've done 5 guys for this. So this is the one I'm really intrigued in. Nick Scowerton, Texas A&M. He is 6'4", 280 pounds, and I've affectionately named him. He's the Texas Tornado, known for his symbolic spin move that he deploys a lot to great effect. Seriously, I see a lot of guys use the spin moves over the years. No one does it more eloquently than this guy. Like Pierce, he's coming off a breakout sophomore season. So it was only second year, his first year as a starter. You can see where the improvement is in his game, but what he did during 2023, it's highly impressive. He's only just going to get better. So he's just transferred to Texas A&M. He was at Purdue last year, and we know how good Purdue are at developing edges. I was all over George Karlaftis in the draft cycle before last. I love him. They're technically astute. They're very well trained. Go and show this in the SEC. He doesn't have the dominating athletic profile that Pierce has. But again, he's 6'4", 280 pounds. So he's got a bulkier frame. He's surprisingly got high athletic ability for a guy his size. It makes him dangerous in other ways. So first up, he's good against the run. It's very hard to move a 280-pound guy out of rushing lanes. Very hard to manhandle him. You can see him setting the edge with consistency. He had 25 run stops in 2023. It was good for third in the FBS amongst edges. As a pass rusher, this bulk allows him to be a really effective bull rusher. But like I say, he's got some good tricks in his bag. You've got the spin move in there. He's really got this vicious swipe move in as well. He can spin, he can swim. So once the leverage is in there, that 280-pound frame, you can't stop him. He's beating you. And you can just see that over and over again on his tape. And his frame as well allows him to drop inside on a 3-man front. He can work as a hand in the ground defensive tackle. So that versatility is another big yes for him as well. So Nick Scowerton, Texas A&M. Love this guy. #3, we've got Ashton Gilotta from Louisville. He is 6'3", 275 pounds. He might be the best run-stuffing edge in the country right now. And again, another bulky guy up near 280, 6'3". He had 28 run stops, 14.5 tackles for loss last season, and a sub-14 missed tackle percentage. So he gets in the backfield, he makes lots of plays, he doesn't miss a lot of his tackles, which is, really good and really coveted. He's no slouch rushing the passer though either. He had 58 quarterback pressures last season. He led the ACC in sacks with 11. He also had 50 tackles total, 3 forced fumbles. He found ways to turn the ball over and stop drives in their tracks. He's another whose bulk allows him to work up and down the line. You see him in 4-man fronts, 3-man fronts. Strong, he's powerful, and again, another who's just very hard to get out of a running lane once he's got himself set, and again, plays just with relentless energy. That Louisville side got to the ACC championship game last year, and he was one of the big reasons why. So the issues do primarily come as a pass rusher. Too often you do see him get hung up. He can't disengage because his counters are not good yet. He needs to get a better repertoire of counters so he can get off blocks. needs to be, he's going to be more of a technique rusher at the next level. You need that technique. You need the arsenal of pass rush moves. They're not quite there just yet. But like I said, he's got the run game worked down to a T, which teams look for sometimes a lot more than the pass rush stuff to begin with. If you see him next year getting more sacks, finding more ways to get to the quarterback, he's already in fringe first round consideration, so he could really notch himself up boards with another good season. Number 4. So I've gone for the slightly smaller school guy here. The other 3 are quite well known at the minute. Elijah Roberts from SMU. Very intriguing prospect. He's 6'4", 278 pounds. He is the crown jewel on a Mustangs defense that racked up 48 sacks last season. That was the second most in a season in program history. SMU's not been known for its defense in recent years, but they've got a good DC there now, and they have really racked it up this last couple of seasons. He had a couple of seasons at Miami, Florida in rotation. He went to SMU to find a starting chance in 2023, and boy, did he take it. 13 sacks, 11 quarterback hits, 2 forced fumbles, 47 further quarterback hurries. He dominated in the ACC championship game. He had 9 pressures, 2 sacks, a quarterback hit, and he forced a fumble that game as well. That was SMU's first ever American win, and he was one of the star players for that. He's, again, another big end in size, nearly 280 pounds, but don't be fooled. This is the guy who has elite bend around the edge, more so maybe than some of the others. He's as strong as they come, but he's nifty, he's agile, he's violent. He's another who has like a really good swipe movers in his arsenal. He just uses it to completely dislodge guys, get them off their feet, and then he's gone. He's so quick. There's a whole host of ways he can hurt you. He'll find your weakness. He'll go to town on it. And the reason why he's so interesting a prospect this year, like SMU are moving to the ACC, so he's actually going back to where he started. They don't play Miami this year, but the level of competition's going up. He's been made a team captain after just one season. It's hard for transfers to become captains in such a short space of time. So his leadership responsibility is going up, and the pressure's going to continue to be on him to be one of the standout guys on the SMU defensive line. They're going to need sacks from him. They're going to need good performance in the run game because they're in a different kettle of fish this year. The opposition levels go up, but if he thrives under all this pressure with new leadership responsibilities, with an uptick in competition, you've got a day 1 draft pick right there potentially out of SMU. So Elijah Roberts, certainly one to look out for there. And then the last one, he's not actually an edge rusher yet, but he's going to be this season. And there's a reason why. We're going to Penn State, and we've got Abdul Carter. He is 6'3", 250 pounds. He's been middle linebacker for the Nittany Lions for the last 2 years. He's moving out to the edge this season, and this is the right call. He has exactly the same build as Micah Parsons. I think Parsons, last I checked, is 6'3", 246, so a smidge lighter. But when Micah Parsons was at Penn State, they got hammered for never playing him on the edge. Like, look how quickly he adapted to it in the NFL. He was quite clearly, that was where he was meant to be. He was a bit wasted at linebacker. Carter, I'm not saying he's going to be Parsons, but he has the same build. He's the same skill set and repertoire. They're going to move him to the edge. He's been a starter for Penn State since he was a true freshman in 2022. He's only a junior this year, but he's already got over 1,100 snaps of experience. As I say, he's a speed rusher with all the power and all the technical refinement you would expect from a Penn State defender. These just churn out NFL level guys year in, year out. From his middle linebacker position last year, he had 4 sacks. He had over 30 quarterback pressures. They did play him on the edge a little. He had nearly 100 snaps off the edge. He posted a 23.5% pass rush win rate. That would have counted him second in the Power 5 amongst edges, behind only Latu, who had an insanely good season for UCLA. That was the kind of company he was keeping there. So yes, it's a position change. He's going to need to prove himself against the run. Can he set the edge as an edge defender? But this is another guy. His potential is limitless, and he could potentially be the most dangerous speed rusher in college football by some margin this year. And I'm glad Penn State are going to give him the chance to do that. So those are your 5 Lisa. I hope that answers it in some way. So we have James Pierce Jr. for Tennessee. We've got Nick Scowerton for Texas A&M, Ashton Gillotta for Louisville, Elijah Roberts for SMU, and Abdul Carter from Penn State. Hope that one helps there. Lisa goes, PFN has Abdul Carter from Penn State as #1. What do you think, Anthony? He could be. So this is what he could be. Everyone's just assuming that he's going to take the Micah Parsons course of things. Micah Parsons is an absolute freak of nature who, you just don't get guys like him that often. So I'm not saying he's going to be him, but they've got similar builds, similar characteristics, exactly the same training. And you see that in a sample size last year. You're winning nearly 25% of your pass rush reps, which is a lot. And he's doing it having been played at middle linebacker and not really trained on the edge. So he's got the skill set, he's got the power, he's got the speed. If Abdul Carter has the season that he can and has his best season, yes, he could be one of the best in the nation. James Pierce, though, he's the same. He's only had 1 year as a starter, James Pierce has. So, he's not even begun to scratch his surface either. So if Pierce has a great season, then it's going to be hard to overcome him. But all I know is, and this factors into a question later, this is a really, or potentially, let's say, really good edge class moving into 2025. But I do like Abdul Carter. I had him, if anyone remembers last year, me and Ryan do our preseason to watch list teams. Abdul Carter was actually in my defense last year because of that true freshman season he had. He had a little bit of a down year by his standards, but again, he's playing middle linebacker. That's not really his thing. So I could see it. I could absolutely see him being #1 next year, potentially, but I think it's going to take a lot to overcome Pierce. Pierce has the body build and the size and all the requisites to be a #1 overall pick. So yeah, that's going to take a lot to overcome. Right, we'll move it on to questions. So I'll go back to Brent actually now. Asked another one in the comments of the video last week. So he goes, if Timmy Chang continues his success at Hawaii, would he need to prove it at a bigger school before breaking into NFL coaching ranks? And where do you think his first NFL coaching position would be? Would it be quarterback coach? So before we answer that, how has he done at Hawaii? So again, those of you who've watched my previews on that long term, the first year we did them was the first year he was there. He took over a mess at Hawaii. Todd Graham destroyed the Rainbow Warriors with his toxic culture, which saw most of the players leave before Chang arrived. I think they'd gone 6-7 that year, but all the players left. It's already hard to win there. When he took over, I think we labeled it as the most difficult situation in college football by some distance, and I stand by that. At the time, it was, and it's not been easy. So in year one, they went 3-10. They were 2-6 in the Mountain West. In year two, despite starting 2-7, they actually finished 5-8 with 3 wins in their last 4, and they went 3-5 in the Mountain West. So after just 2 years, they are close to breaking parity at 500 with both their overall record and their record in the Mountain West. Under him, Braden Shager, the quarterback, he's thrown for 5,900 yards and 39 touchdowns in 2 seasons. And here is, for me, where it shows how good a job he's been doing. So after the season, Shager hit the portal. It was a big shock because apparently he said he wasn't going to, but he hit the portal. He went and took a visit to BYU, which I mean would have been a really good move for him. But such is the job that Chang's done there with the culture in Hawaii. He actually said to himself, I've made a mistake. I could go and play for BYU in the Power 4, but I want to go back. I want to go and see this through. So he actually had to go back to the team and plead to Chang, will you take me back? And he has done, to his credit. So Shager's going to be back for year 3. They've also retained their star wide receiver, Pofele Ashlock. So he had 800 yards and 9 touchdowns last year. he was expected to fly out the door to a bigger opportunity. He was on the freshman All-American first team for the entire country, not just the conference. He was on the freshman All-American first team. He's the only Mountain West player to make it on there, and he was the first in 13 years to do it as a Rainbow Warrior, and they've kept him. This was a team that could not hold on to talent at all 2 years ago, let alone having players want to come back, especially two of your biggest stars. So that tells me one thing. That tells me the culture there is a culture where players want to go and play for him, and they are repaying his faith in them and not just doing a number in the portal, which is big there. You've had other improvements. The defense, it improved from 117th to 72nd in total defense. So that was a rise of nearly 40 places. There is a lot to like about what he's done so far, but they've got huge strides to make to take that final leap to bowl season and relevance. They had the second worst rushing attack in the FBS. They had less than 70 yards per game. So essentially they were playing extreme air raid. He doesn't want to, but they weren't able to run the ball. They play a spread offense as it is. The defense was better with yards, but it was still ranked 109th in scoring defense. It gave up over 33 points per game, and just 2 of the 7 losses were within 1 score. So the games they are losing for the most part, it's pretty comprehensive. So that gap's got to come down there. They did nearly upset Vandy, which would have been a Power 5 scalp. I mean, it's Vandy, but it's still Vandy. So overall, he's making Hawaii a very tough place to go and win, which, given the scale of the task at his disposal when he got there, is some achievement. So he's doing a really good job. I agree. As for the future coaching opportunities stuff, I think he's really going to want to see things through at Hawaii first. Like, it was his alma mater. He threw for 17,000 yards as a quarterback there. He went back to do his doctorate there. And, the team really means a lot to him. First, he's got to get them to bowl eligibility. If he wants to look for bigger jobs, he's got to get them into bowls and winning bowls and get to 7-8 wins and start trying to compete in the Mountain West, which is tough. But if he does, he will start getting looks from, I reckon, the Power 4. He could. I do think he will need a bigger job in college football before getting NFL looks at a skill coach level. This is just a guess on my part, but he stayed pretty West Coast in his coaching career, like Nevada, Hawaii, stayed on that ilk. He's from Hawaii as well. So I think the higher odds would be on a team on that side of the country for both college and NFL. I'm now like, if the Giants or the Jets or someone came along and offered him a big job, I didn't think he'd say no, but just going off what I can here. In terms of the position, so he's actually coached wide receivers and tight ends more than quarterbacks. So I think it would be an offensive skill position, not necessarily quarterbacks if he was to get his first jobs there. In terms of where, again, this is a complete guess, but Nevada and Hawaii, they maintain very close links through travel, migration, all that sort of stuff. We do it with the UNLV previews we mentioned there. That will give him an opportunity to keep close in the Hawaiian community. It's nice and snug near over there on the West Coast. It would, I guess, if it's a home thing, it would make sense for him. But again, if an NFL team comes calling from anywhere, he would probably take it. But yeah, I think he stays and finishes the job at Hawaii unless it all goes terribly wrong. He'll move on to another college job at a bigger one, and then you might see him in the NFL. But I've got a real soft spot for that team. I think he's doing a great job, and I would fancy them to make waves in the Mountain West next year. So that is where I think Timmy Chang, that's where his career is going so far, Brent. Let's move it on. And moving on, so this is a question from Ash. Our own Ash. He asked me this on Twitter. He wanted me to go through it. So, who are the kickers to watch this season? So, obviously, the Lions still have a precarious kicking situation. We're not sure whether Jake Bates is the future yet, whether Badgley is. All we know is it's still pretty much up in the air. So, he wants to have a look at what kickers might be around in the collegiate scene in the draft next year. So, again, like the Edges, we've done 5 here. And I'm sorry, I'm going to have to upset him right off the bat here, but I'm picking a Hurricane. So you've got Andre Borregales, he is from the Miami, Florida Hurricanes. He's 5'11", 170 pounds. Arguably got the strongest leg in the country out of all the established kickers anyhow. He's been a place kicker at Miami for 3 years now, and he took over the duties there from his brother, Jose Borregales, who won the Lou Groza Award in 2020. So this is a family with kicking pedigree, although I think the last I counted Jose was in the CFL. He was 4 of 6 from 50 plus last year. His best was 51 yards against both Florida State and Louisville. He's 121 of 122 on extra points. He's 12 of 15 from 40 plus over his career. He's an exact 3 of 4 every year from the range. So he's only missing one kick from 40 or above per year. Miami and especially Mario Cristobal, they're in for a big year. This is probably his last year to prove he can do the job there. They've brought in a ton of really good recruits. They've got a great team. Borregales is going to need to be clutch this year. If he is, he'll be one of the top kickers on the board going into next season. Next up, got Graham Nicholson, the Alabama kicker. He is 6 foot, 185 pounds. So if you're Bama, how do you replace Will Rijkaard? He's your elite kicker. He's the leading point scorer in team history. Well, you go and do that by getting the reigning Lou Groza winner out of the transfer portal, the Lou Groza for best kicker in the country. And that is Graham Nicholson. He's swapping the MAC for one of the biggest stages in college football. He went 27 of 28 on field goals last season, including going 9 out of 10 from 40 plus. He only had one attempt from 50 plus, which he got. It was from 52. His 24 consecutive field goals in a single season last year is an NCAA record, so very trustworthy indeed. He's had issues with extra points. He's missed 7 in 3 seasons, and he's going to be kicking with a lot more pressure in the cauldron of Tuscaloosa this year rather than the confines of the MAC. So it remains to be seen if he can cut out the extra point issues and continue being as clutch as he is. He's going to be among the best kickers potentially available in 2025 draft as well. Next up, we've got Dragan Kisic. He's from Minnesota. He's a Golden Gopher. He's 6'4", 240 pounds. He was a bright spot on a miserable Golden Gophers offense last year. It was his first season seeing action all season. He went a perfect 27 of 27 on extra points, and kicking in those tougher northern conditions, it does mean a lot. He went 23 of 27 on field goals. He was 5 of 6 from 40 plus. He was 3 of 4 from 50 plus. So he's showing really good accuracy from long range. He missed a couple between 30 and 39, but he's a first-year kicker. Maybe you can forgive a couple of lapses there. If he cuts it out this year and he stays as consistent as he does from 40 plus, like I say, he will be a formidable kicker going into next year. Then we've got Jonah Dalmas from Boise State. He's 5'8", 180 pounds. This is Boise State's record holder. He is looking to smash a lot of NCAA records this season as well. Over his career, he's got an 88.9% field goal completion, which is second all-time in the NCAA. His 80 overall field goals converted is 15th all-time as well. So you'd assume with a full season, he's going to keep going up them lists. He's 80 of 90 overall in his career. He's gone 164 of 167 on extra points. Last year, he was 10 of 11 on field goals over 40 yards. Over his career, he's 20 of 22 from 40 plus, and he's 7 of 9 from over 50. So again, this is a highly experienced, decorated, long-range kicker from Boise there. They won the Mountain West last year, so he's used to winning as well. So Dalmas is another intriguing option. And then finishing it off, number 5, Alex McPherson from Auburn. He's 5'9", 150 pounds. He is another who last season, it represented his first as a starter. He was perfect across the board. He went 40 of 40 on extra points and 13 of 13 on field goals. 4 of them were from 40 or longer. One of them was from 50 or longer. The sample size is very small right now, hence why he's down at 5 and not quite there yet. That Auburn offense, it's not very good. It only goes off against lesser teams, and for the most part, it's not great. Doesn't give him many attempts to kick. But carrying on from the back end of 2022 when he played a few games, he's currently on an unbroken streak of 19 consecutive field goals. So again, very clutch, very accurate, and he's not missed a thing. I think he missed like one extra point in his first year as a backup. But yeah, that's going to put him amongst the best kickers around if he can continue that sort of accuracy and form this year. Let's just hope for him that Auburn's offense is a little bit better and can get him into kicking more. So Ash, in terms of your kickers to watch this season, I'll just re-round them up. Andre Borregales from the Miami Hurricanes, Graham Nicholson from Alabama, Dragan Kesich from Minnesota, Jonah Delmas from Boise State, and Alex McPherson from Auburn. And I have a friend in the building. Yay! Matthew Turner is here. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Oh, I'm not doing bad. Not doing bad. It's very weird not having Ryan here. I did the opening to the show and I went to say Ryan's name and I'm like, I can't say that because he's not here, and it's just thrown me out completely.
You need a foil. That's what you need.
Absolutely. I feel when I talk for too long on my own that I'm going to bore people to death, and I try to keep it fun and whatnot. It's just very intimidating doing stuff on your own. So it's nice to have someone in the building with me. Brent goes, I agree with Antony, Chank, and Coach. Brent, me and you, we just agree about everything. Say it all you want. We used to be serial disagreeers with things, but I think, we're best buds now. We agree on pretty much everything me and Brent do, Navy are better than Army and, all that sort of stuff. It's great. Love it. Oh dear, let me just check I've not missed anything in any chats while I've been going. Lisa, going back to the edges, goes, Scowerton is only a junior, may not opt for the draft. He may not, but I'm doing guys who potentially, like, knowing who's going to declare for a draft and who isn't is just hearsay at this point. We've no idea. The only thing you know for sure is that freshmen from last year won't be doing it this year. So anyone else who's junior, senior, is at potential to go to a draft, and this if Scowerton's as good as he is, he'd be the second best edge in next year's draft. So why not do it while the iron's hot, as they say? Right. Hang on. Where was we at? I'll finish my last question then, and then we can go into some others. So the other one I had prepared, let me get to it, was from Ken Stauder. He asked it me in YouTube on one of our shows last week, and it's coming around to the draft anyhow, so I may as well talk about it a little bit. What position groups look the strongest for next year? And question, and the answer to that is not easy, but not many of them are looking really good at this moment in time. But I did answer you, I think, almost immediately on that one. That certainly the most impressive room going into next year's draft right now is running back. And I know Lions fans don't want to hear that because we don't need a running back, but this might just be the most talented running back class I've ever seen in my time. And there is a running back for every offensive scheme. So you look at the top of the board here, Ollie Gordon II for Oklahoma State. He's a running back built like an ex-wide receiver on the outside. The dude is an absolute menace. You've got Quinshawn Judkins and Travion Henderson at Ohio State. You've got Nick Singleton and Katron Allen at Penn State. You've got Amarian Hampton, the sensation from UNC. That's a running back school producers there. You've got Taj Brooks from Texas Tech. You've got Jaden Ott from California. He's been joined by Star Thomas there, who's another potential big one. You've got Devin Neal from Kansas. You've got Damian Martinez and Mark Fletcher at the Miami Hurricanes. They're going to be one of the best 1-2 duos in the country. You've got Trevor Etienne down at Georgia, brother of Travis, and we know how good he is. You've got Rocket Sanders at South Carolina, and maybe better than every single one of them coming out of the group of 5, you've got Ashton Gianti at Boise State. So again, for anyone who listens to our previews we do over the summer, last year when we did the Mountain West one. Like, that was George Halani's team at Boise State, and in the running back room, we still pointed out Ashton Giante as he's going to be the guy who's going to be great. George Halani's in the NFL now. This is Giante's season. There was that article out recently which mentioned Giante's name in the same circles as Barry Sanders. Now, I'm not going to, we're not making any comparisons like that here, but Ashton Giante is a special talent, even at the group of 5 level, and he could potentially go before every single one of these guys. To put into perspective, this year's first pick for running back, Jonathan Brooks, might not even have made the top 6 or 7 this year. And he went fairly high in round 2 this year. This is how good the running back class is going into next year. Not all these guys are going to declare. Some might hurt, some might get hurt, some might spend an extra year in there, but whoever goes, the running back class is going to be absolutely loaded. Other classes who are good, the edge class is going to be good. We've talked about the edge class already. There were 5 guys I've put on high alert there for the question I answered earlier, but I didn't even talk about guys like, Florida State. You've got Patrick Payton there. Ohio State, you've got their pairing, Jack Sawyer, JT Tuamalo. They're looking inside when it comes to the best prospects here. They're all really good in their own right, but those 5 guys I mentioned are sort of potentially even better. So if you need an edge this year, which potentially we may do, this is a really good year, but you might have to go high to get them. And then the other class that I wanted to mention, also on the defensive line, the defensive tackle class. Now, this is potentially one of the best classes, and especially for depth in years. Like the last few years, we've talked about the defensive tackles. I've had my favorite ones, but there's not been a lot of depth to the classes. There's not been that many really good ones at once. But this year, and Danny's listening, he's going to go, oh yeah, Michigan man, but Michigan host maybe the best pair of DTs who will both go into the draft next year. You got Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant, who are potentially going to be both superstars in their own right. You've got Walter Nolan at Texas A&M. Now, right now, he's the former 5, he was one of the best players he was the best player in the country coming through his recruiting class. He's been good. He's not reached his ceiling just yet. So he's in kind of the position where I was with the Miami DT last year, Leonard Taylor. I'm not quite sold in on him yet, but I think he's going to be good. But Walter Nolan, potentially going to be a first-round pick. You've got Jamari Caldwell at Oregon, absolute stud. Deone Walker at Kentucky. Howard Cross III at Notre Dame. We talked about him last week. That Notre Dame interior defensive line, oh boy, that's going to be... You're not going to run through it this year. Let's just put it that way. They are 3 deep with elite prospects there, or elite talent there. He's the main guy. And then you got Bear Alexander at USC as well. That's just the kind of headline of the class. You've got guys who are going to emerge as well and depth below it. I really, really like the DT class at this point this year. So running backs, edge, and D tackles, I really like. I do want to make a quick note about the corners. Now, corners, this class doesn't have anywhere near the depth that last year's class had. There were just so many corners knocking around. However, this class is littered with blue chip corners. Will Johnson from Michigan. I said this on a show not too long ago. I think Will Johnson might just be the most talented player that Michigan have produced in the last decade. Better than Hutch, better than JJ, better than all those guys who've come out of that school. The skill at his position is insane. He is going to be a very high draft pick indeed, but he's getting run close. You've got Benjamin Morrison at Notre Dame, who is also as elite as they come at what he does. And he's part of a very good Notre Dame secondary this year, but he's blue chip. You've got Ricardo Holman at Wisconsin, so again in the Big Ten. He had 7 interceptions last year, and he's just stupidly good against the run. That Wisconsin team's never anything to shout about on offense, but always perk your ears up when it comes to the defense. But Ricardo Holman is also, for me, a blue chip prospect. And again, of course, you got the wild card. You got Travis Hunter at Colorado now. It depends what they're going to do with him on the whole. They're probably going to two-way him again. I prefer him as a corner to a wide receiver. But again, if he reaches his potential as a corner, like he is also a blue chip prospect there. So it's not got the depth, but I just wanted to mention like the guys at the top are insanely, insanely good with the corners. So those are my favorite rooms so far. Obviously, a lot changes as the year goes on. Quarterbacks could be good, but sorry, you got to prove it to me. Receivers, they have a very good crop at the top, but again, nowhere near the depth they've had in recent years. Offensive line is, well down at the minute compared to what it was, and the depth was just insane on the O-line this year. There's some good ones, don't get me wrong, but as of now, it's nowhere near what last year's was. The linebackers, no, terrible, and the safeties, no, nothing really going there at the minute. So I don't know. Overall, the 2025 NFL draft could be, at the minute for me, it's lacking the talent the 2024 did. But that doesn't mean there's still not going to be loads of really great players there. So hopefully, Ken, that answers your question there. Running backs, edges, DTs, that's where the market is at the moment. And again, could change. But yeah, that is where we're at in terms for me right now. But we'll keep monitoring it during the season, and things change. Things change very quickly. Sometimes you have a good quarterback class at the start of the season. At the end, it's terrible. I love Brent. Yeah, and I'm a Navy fan. That's why there's my Army flag flying in the background of the interview link I sent you. Go Army. I thought someone had stolen it and replaced it with that, Brent. It was definitely a setup there. He goes, did any cornerbacks from Rutgers get drafted? Yeah, Bo Melton got drafted. I don't know where he went in the end. I wanted him for the Lions, and I said first round, but yeah, I think he went about in the 50s, but he got drafted. I'm not sure this year. I would have to check. But I think they may have draftable prospects this year as well. But Bo Melton was the standout. But Wallman at Wisconsin and Will Johnson and Benjamin Morrison are just, they're so damn good. Go on, Matt.
Max Melton as opposed to Bo Melton.
Oh, Max, yeah. Bo's his brother.
Yeah, Bo's the wide receiver who plays for the Packers. Max Melton went to the Cardinals.
Yeah, he did.
I don't know a lot about college football, but I can do the research in the background.
That's fine. Well, I say that many things that sometimes I'm going to make mistakes. So...
you said about things changing. It's just amazing to have a look at mock draft machines and see where the quarterbacks are ranked at the moment, because Cam Ward, who last year, we all really like Cam Ward as someone who's like a really high ceiling, but he's not there yet sort of guy, he declared for the draft, and then if I remember, he took it back and he went back to school.
Yeah.
Pro Football Network have him projected as the 71st overall pick, but he went back to school because he might not have got drafted last year. And below him, you've got people like Drew Allard, you've got Jalen Daniels, Quinn Ewers, DJ Ngalele, Jackson Dart, Graham Mertz, Tyler Van Dyke, Dylan Gabriel, KJ Jefferson. All of those names are below Cam Ward, who wasn't potentially a draftable prospect last year. So that just tells you how much is going to change, because that ain't staying that way. Oh, no. He's also the number 4 quarterback on the list at 71.
Yeah, and that's... because if you look at mock drafts now, you'll see a lot of quarterbacks in the first round, but it's kind of the easiest one to take a swing at, because if they, always positional value plays into it. But it's why I'm not willing to call the quarterback like Carson Beck headlines. I don't care what anybody says. Carson Beck has not played anywhere near enough to show me he's legit as a quarterback one in this class. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not having it. So you've got him, you've got Shadur Sanders.
Is Carson Beck definitely going to start?
Oh yeah. He will start. Dylan Raiola's going to sit. No, hang on.
Not Raiola, the Arizona State transfer.
Yeah, no, he's gonna start.
Who's the
Jaden Rashada?
That's the one.
No, Jaden Rashada will be the long term. He's still only a second-year guy now.
Yeah, so do you think he's going to redshirt this year and effectively then come out for year 3 as a redshirt? Redshirt.
Beck's going to go this year. Beck's going to go. He couldn't go this year. He'll go next year because the class isn't good enough. So Shadur Sanders I mean, he's probably the most prolific of the lot of them there. I still think, and I know I'm on my own here, but I still think Quinn Ewers is quarterback one in this class. I just have an affinity for
Wow.
Quinn. That Alabama game has shown me what he can be. And if he's that consistently good in the SEC, I think he's got all the tools that people. There was a reason he was such a high star recruit for a reason, and injuries have sort of. He plays. It's the lesser opposition he plays bad against, which is confusing. He plays well against good opposition, and then the lesser games he'll have a stinker. So, but in the SEC, it's going to be a battlefield this year. There's no divisions. Top two teams go through. You've got to win all your games. So I just feel it's like the right cauldron for him to do well. And that Texas team, I think, is going to be good. So we'll see. But then outside of that, Milrow, 1 year starter, not sold on. Drew Aller burned me last year. The other hot take, Connor Weigman. So I couldn't say this. I tried to say this on the show yesterday. Someone asked, what is your outland bet for this year? Because someone took money off me saying Washington were going to make the playoffs last year, which I'm really happy with. I'm glad people will take my knowledge to that level. My hot take this year is not to do with the playoffs because it's 12 teams. Connor Weigman is the outside dark horse to be the Heisman winner. I love Connor Weigman. And now that Mike Elko's at Texas A&M and they've got a competent coach and they've got a really good team there, I think he's going to do it. I think this is everyone gets burned by saying it's A&M's year. This is my turn. Got burned by Penn State last year, but Weigman is the guy I go to there, and Ewers is as well. I think they're my QBs 1 and 2. If they choose to go outside of that, I mean, Jackson Dart needs a big year. Riley Leonard, I don't think they're as good as Cam Ward. I really like Cam Ward as well. He's done it in the FCS with Incarnate Word. He's done it at Washington State, and we did their preview. They had one of the worst running attacks in the country last year, and he got sacked 40 times, and yet he still put up the numbers he did. Like, he's done it at FCS, he's done it at Power 4. I like the move to Miami. If they can win they can win the Atlantic Coastal this year with him, his stock will go through the roof. So they're like my three favorite ones out of that. But again, everyone needs to prove something. No one has the innate skill and ability already to just say they're a round one draft pick. It's like the second year in a row.
I think what I'm looking out for this year, and the more that this goes on, and with my limited knowledge of things, I'm looking out for those guys who are making the jump up to a Power 4 conference that have proved it at the Group of 5 level or even FCS level as someone to be like, okay, prove it for 1 year against top opposition. Can you do it? And I'm just watching the highlight reel at the moment of the MAC Player of the Year last year, Toledo's DeQuan Finn, who went to Baylor, because that's someone who could go from borderline draftable prospect at the moment right up into day 1, day 2 territory, because prove it at Baylor, sky's the limit. I mean, he looks like absolute fire when I'm watching this. It's a highlight reel and it's a quarterback, I know, but able to run the option game very well, good feet, nice arm.
See, the thing is, you're right.
Little short.
When you don't have any bona fide, well, I mean, people will say we do have bona fide prospect stuff, but when you've got no locks at the top, the spots are there to be won. You can insert yourself in. That's why all these names, even KJ Jefferson, I love KJ, but if he has a great year at UCF and they win the Big 12, he inserts himself back into the... That's what I mean. There's potentially 15, 20 guys who can insert themselves into this conversation at the top with a really good year. But there's no one who's untouchable in this class because they're just that damn good. Those classes, unfortunately, are a couple of years away. You look at the freshman class this year, it's insanely good. And in a couple of years, we're going to be talking some really, really, really big names. Like Iama Lieva starts at Tennessee this year. Dylan Raiola will start this year. Like, these guys potential to be uber superstars. Brent asked a very quick one. Who's the first Wolverine who will be drafted next year? That's easy. That's Will Johnson. He's a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. Like, again, you are talking better than you're talking better than Sauce Gardner or Pat Surtain here at this point. And I'm not, I don't give flowers to Michigan freely. When I say he's their most talented player in the last decade, I mean it. Like in terms of he is better as a corner as Aiden Hutchinson is as an edge rusher. That's not insulting Aiden. That's just saying how damn good Will Johnson is. Like the man is just he redefines what lockdown is. So he will be the first guy taken. I can't see any other Wolverines in the top consideration for the top five. And that's where Will Johnson is at, unless he tears an ACL or something, and we don't want that to happen. So no. So
Yeah,
that's your easy answer to that one, Brent.
Pro Football Reference have Will Johnson at 2 and
Yeah.
Mason Graham at 7. So
See, that's the thing. Mason Graham is the potential. Like, if there's going to be an outside shot, it's going to be Mason Graham. But like DTs will suffer more, I think, from positional value than cornerbacks. And like I say, this is not a deep cornerback class, so that's going to inflate the value of these guys this year. Like again, Holman, Johnson, Morrison, Hunter could all go top 10 between the four of them. Again, depending on what Travis Hunter's going to be. He might be a receiver, but like that's the level for them. So I'm pretty confident in saying Will Johnson's going to be the first guy drafted by them. Excuse me. Brent goes, did MCDC make any trips to A&M, maybe to try and help right the ship behind the scenes? MCD, if nothing, if not loyal to his roots. I don't think Campbell's had out to do with his alma mater. I would assume he goes back there if they do reunions and stuff like that. I don't know. Do you remember any instances of him going back there?
no, not that I recall. But I mean, they get about, so
Yeah, I mean, odds are he probably is still in contact with someone there. Like someone asked about Campbell, I think it was yesterday, we were talking about Campbell, and I said there's going to be more chance of him going for the A&M job than there is of him going for the Dallas job. Because people say, would he go to the Cowboys? But I don't think he would.
I don't think he'd go directly to the Cowboys. He'd have to have a move in between because I think he's the sort of guy who wouldn't want to move to a rival of the team that he's currently a coach of. I think he has too much honour in his heart for that, even if it's his hometown state.
Yeah. I don't know. Dan strikes me as the type who want to help the kids in the end, like to go and if it doesn't work with Mike Elko and he wins a Super Bowl here or he goes elsewhere from here. I just don't. I fancy him to go
How good
back
of a
there.
recruiter would he be, man?
Of course he would.
Oh,
Like kids would flock to play for Dan Campbell. Like all over the place, they would flock to play for him. So, and A&M would give him they'd pay him whatever he wanted. He wouldn't have to take a pay cut from what he's probably earning in the NFL. They would just give him lots and lots and lots of money. They got one of the biggest booster pools in the nation. And they would probably pull out every stop they could have for him. All I will say, again, I think this is the year of A&M. And many a commentator has fallen to that curse, but I just love Connor Weigman too much. And I feel like I've got credit with my Washington and Texas stuff. No one thought Texas were going to get to the playoffs last year, so I feel like I've got some credit in the bank with that. Lisa goes, what do you think of Princely Uman Malin from Florida? He will be at Ole Miss this year. I wanted to put him in that list, Lisa, and I do like Princely Uman Malin. He is very good. He is long, he is rangy, and he might be one of the quickest edge rushers out of all the ones I mentioned earlier. Like when he got the bend, when he goes, he's just so he's at the quarterback so quick. There's so many times you see tackles just cannot get set against him. The only concern I have, and this comes from Gators fans, not me, and I don't know whether they're a little bitter that he's transferred or not, but I've always thought this about him. He does have a laziness problem sometimes. There are too many plays that he has off. So that might be bitter Gator stuff, but I've also sort of had that little bit of a gut feeling myself. Like with some of these others, like I just feel I see top level energy from them and not from him. But he's a damn good player and he's a damn good edge rusher. Ole Miss are another weird team like this year, like A&M. Like Ole Miss should have been doing a lot better than they have. in recent years. Like they've been underachieving for the talent they've got. But even Ryan is backing them this year, and Ryan said he would refuse to ever back them again after they let him down last year. They have recruited out their minds, even losing Quinshon Junkins, like which was a huge loss for them. They have recruited out their minds. If you're looking for dark horses for the SEC, they should be counted among them because they've got one of the most experienced teams. They've got a quarterback who's, I think, going into his third year now, who is completely ingrained in the system, and they've got a great recruiter there. It's just they can't do it in big games. So maybe this year, with divisions going, it might help them. I'm not sure. Let me just have a look what their schedule is, because if the schedule falls right, and they get the tougher teams at home and it just works out for them, they might be able to cause a shock. So we're at Kentucky at home, South Carolina away at LSU, at home to Oklahoma, away at Arkansas, at home to Georgia, away at Florida, at home to Miss State. I tell you what, outside of LSU on the road, every single one of those games is winnable. The Razorbacks are not good at the minute. Florida could be good, but they're not. And then the home slate, Oklahoma, Miss State, Kentucky. Like that Georgia game at home is going to be the make or break for them. So, and it's quite late in the year, so that's good because the team has sort of gotten its, it's gotten out of any funks it might have. It's worked out, should be playing pretty well. Yeah, I don't know. I might buy into that along with him. I'm not sure.
Do Miami have an issue with players with low effort, so inconsistent effort?
Florida.
Because Florida, yeah. I'm just looking at who they've had drafted since 2021, and in that list is Kadarius Toney, Kyer Elam, Gervin Dexter. I remember all three of them having concerns about effort.
I don't know whether it's just sort of a lazy thing now, but potentially yes, which is a shame because I think Billy Napier is a very good coach. But this is year 3 for him, so I think Elam was drafted a couple of years ago. I think these players were drafted mainly before he was there, if I remember rightly. Elam is he's a year 3 now guy for Buffalo, isn't he? Surely.
Yeah, although he was close to being cut last year, apparently.
Yeah, but I think that was before. That was before his time. So I'm not sure if it's a thing under Napier so much. And again, I say this might just be bitter fans complaining because he's gone in the portal to an SEC rival. Because Florida have actually stocked up pretty well this year. They're another potential dark horse team. So I don't know, but I it is a legitimate complaint potentially there. So Brent goes, is Davius Richard on a practice squad? The kid is electric. I don't think he is. He's still rehabbing from his injury. As far as I'm aware, he won't have gone to any of the spring leagues. You'll probably see him attached to a spring league when it comes closer to it, because I think the injury was too serious. It was going to rule him out a lot of the summer. So he's not he's not gone anywhere yet. I can't see anywhere. I've not heard anything about it. I've not seen anything because usually when the guys attach themselves, Gerald will put up about it on Twitter, and I've not seen anything from him so far. I mean, that was just a shame overall. Second draft in a row, no HBCU players drafted, which was just you will see a lot of players emerge from that. Might not be this year, but you can see a lot of year 2 and 3 players from the HBCUs work their way up through the practice squads onto teams. So yeah, that was a problem they had last year. It's a problem they've had this year. I saw actually a tweet from Gerald the other day. He's done his pre-season scouting of everybody. He's got just 2 draftable grades on players next year. I think he had a lot this year, so it might not get better anytime soon. I think the A&M Rattlers have got another edge. Or is it corner? I think they've got another corner. The HBCU corners are so good. I don't know why they don't get drafted over some of the rubbish that does. Pearsall. Oh yeah, Pearsall was good. Lisa mentioned, but Pearsall also did spend the majority of his career at Arizona State. Like he had 1 year at Florida, so or was it 2? No, he had 1 year.
Must be why he's so good at going and getting balls from the air, because he's very used to poor quarterback play.
You know what? He always used to. Everyone used to call him a tight end as well, so he always had a chip on his shoulder because there was the whole, oh, he's a tight end at the next level. So I think sometimes when players get done like that, you just have you have an extra chip on your shoulder. You don't want to be lazy, otherwise you're kind of indicating what people are saying about you. No, Davis Richard definitely has not gone anywhere as of yet. If there's anything else people want to ask, just let me know, because I've done all my pre-asked questions at this point. So we're just going to be chatting about anything really from now on going forward. I know I was asked about the Razorbacks earlier. I don't envisage a good season for Arkansas, to be fair. Sam Pittman is on one of the hottest seats in football right now. They've been they've been drafting. They've been recruiting very well, but there's a lot of holes on that football team. There's no KJ Jefferson this year. There's no Rocket Sanders this year. Like, he's at South Carolina. They lost him to South Carolina, an in-state SEC rival who are not exactly meant to be that much better than them. When you lose your prize running back and they're taking a sideways move, not an upwards move, then you've got a problem. And of course, no KJ Jefferson, which just yeah. I love KJ. I've loved that program for years because of him and his ability. But he's gone to UCF. So I mean, that's going to the Big 12. That's kind of like a sideways move as well, really. It's not career making that he's going to go there. It's certainly not draft making that he's going there. So I don't know who the quarterback is there this year now. I do. Actually, that's quite intriguing because Taylor Green's the quarterback there this year. He's the guy we were bigging up for Boise State last year. We said he'd be one of the best quarterbacks in the group of 5. So potentially very intriguing there. If they can get Taylor Green going, that could actually be he could be a guy to watch out for. I think he's been going 2 or 3 years now, but he's very good, very talented, and that's going to be a very big stage for him to shine on. And there's no KJ there anymore, so he's probably going to get that starting job right away as well. And there's no way he was staying at Boise. They got Malachi Nelson from USC, the 5-star. So kind of works well for both of them, really. But yeah, Razorbacks are going to struggle in a very competitive SEC. I don't know who's going to come out the SEC this year. It's 16 teams, probably 7 or 8 of them legitimately have a shot at saying they could win it. So, like, Bama are rebuilding, LSU new quarterback. Ole Miss and Florida and teams like that are going to be upstarts trying to get in there and win the conference. The schedule's going all out over the place, and I say best 2 teams. So you don't even get Bama wouldn't have made it last year without the conference, without the divisions. So
I have a very rookie question.
Go.
With the conference realignment, the teams that are moving in intra FBS moves, they are eligible for their championship games and stuff like that. Yeah, I thought they would. Okay, so I'm sure you've probably done an episode on this way back when all the realignment stuff started, but who do you think the biggest winners and losers are out of all of the realignment stuff? Because so much has happened, and I kind of feel sorry for some of the teams that have stayed in their own conference and they had an outside shot of doing something, and now with bigger teams coming over, they've got no chance. And just thinking in-state for our fan base, I'm thinking specifically of Michigan State here, because the Big Ten, they've made the playoffs once before. I think once, maybe no, once. Made the playoffs once, and now suddenly with all the conference put together, they've got to contend with a team like Iowa, who suck offensively, but try and get them to deal with that defense, and that's not going to be easy. And now suddenly you've got USC and Oregon in there, and Washington in there as well, and it's do you have any chance of making a college football playoff in the next 5 years, realistically, before you turn over the entire team, because I just don't think they do. I think teams like Penn State as well are really going to suffer.
So this is a twofold question. So in terms of conferences that win out of this, in terms of teams that win and lose out of this, I've said this. This is a massive win for the Big Ten because the Big Ten has been the worst Power Five conference for a couple of years now, simply because it's Ohio State and Michigan. They never play till the last game of the year, and they're in the same division. So when it comes to the championship game, it's just been lopsided. We've not had a fun Big Ten championship game for some time now. Like it's always just a rout. Like the last 2 years, it's been Iowa who don't deserve to be there. Quite frankly, I will use the word boring. You get a lot of good players out of the Big Ten, but it has been boring. Penn State are the only second level, like you've got two top tier teams in Ohio State and Michigan, and then your second tier is Penn State, and that's it. And they can't beat Ohio State or Michigan, so they're not even really second tier. And then you've got a whole load of rubbish below that, and it's just not that good. Now you're putting legitimate contenders in there. You're taking them out their comfort zone because West Coast, East Coast, this is going to be more favorable, I think, to the Big Ten teams because they will play more games in the Midwest than the West Coast teams will play on the West Coast. Like they'll be in their element more, but it's going to provide a level of competition we've not seen. And getting rid of divisions means it's the best two teams now. So if it is going to be Michigan and Ohio State, they'll play each other twice in a row. They'll play last game of the season. They'll play in the championship game back to back. So you're going to get a competitive title game, but you've put more legit teams in there. So if Penn State are going to have to up the game, Iowa are going to have to up the game. Like teams like that can no longer just, like Wisconsin and who've got there recently. They're not going to be able to rely on a weak division getting them to a championship game no more. They're going to have to up what they do. And they've got a lot of talent coming in. So I think for the conference itself, it's a win. But like you said, for a lot of teams, this is going to be a loss, especially those teams in the division that's been lost, who had a route through to the championship game. They're never going to sniff one again. Not unless something big happens. Like Wisconsin could. That defense is always great, but they're going to have to make they're going to have to make their offense better. Got Tyler Van Dyke this year. Go and do it. But and see, it's a loss for all those other teams, basically, but it's a win for the top. Like now you've got Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. It's very competitive at the top, but it's going to be a lot will get lost at the bottom. And I think that's the same for all four. Because Ryan said he could see the creation of another conference in a few years. I could too, because there's going to be a midsection of teams who are big, but they're not big enough, who I think are going to get fed up of just treading water every year and not being good in all the conferences. And you will find a split there where they'll split and form their own conferences because Big 12 is 16 teams, ACC 17, Big 10's 18, SEC's 16. Like, it's a lot of teams. It's a lot of mouths to feed, and there's only one championship game. And you've got to figure out what they're going to do with the playoffs, because the playoffs are just decided on rankings. And, all the conferences, they don't get even share of the playoff positions. Like, Big 10 might get 1 or 2. The SEC might get 6 or 7. So that's going to annoy teams even more. So for the Big 10, the realignment is a big win, but it's going to be a loss for some of the teams in the middle to the bottom who are used to at least seeing the dance sometimes. I think the Big 12 is a massive winner of realignment. I know you've lost Oklahoma and Texas, but it's been a very competitive conference because you've got a load of 1B teams in there. And sometimes the good thing about not having a star in your conference is if you've got a lot of really good teams instead. You look at Oklahoma State, you look at TCU, who've won it recently, Baylor won it not so long ago. Like, it's incredibly competitive and teams keep beating one another. You're putting Colorado in there, Utah in there, Arizona in there, Arizona State. Like, Arizona, really good football team. Utah, really good football team. Arizona State and Colorado can be really good football teams. Like, that's an injection of high-level talent into the Big 12. But there's not too many teams at the bottom who are that bad they're going to get left behind. That's just going to be like a lottery machine, just throw them all in there and watch them bounce around and pick at random. That's going to be, I think, going to be one of my favorite conferences going forward. So
I
that's a
completely
win.
agree. Like, you have a look at all of the teams in that conference, and none of them are going to go in thinking we got no chance.
Yeah, exactly. So
Maybe West Virginia.
I like West Virginia. They're a good team. Neil Brown was on a hot seat last year, and he had a really good season.
What about Houston? Houston aren't fantastic, are they?
See the ones who've just come up out the American, Houston are in there. Oh God, who else came out of there as well? It was well, BYU came out the Independents, but
Yeah.
you get a Holy War back. BYU and Utah's the Holy War. That's one of the better games out there when it comes to rivalries.
Are they both Mormon?
Yeah, but yes, Utah State, and BYU have a.
I knew BYU were definitely Mormon.
They have like a Trinity thing. Well, yeah, they have like a Trinity thing. There's three of them. So that's back, which will be really Holy War in the Big 12, but it's going to be incredibly competitive and incredibly fun. The ACC, Cal, Stanford, and SMU. That's just they're not. None of them are going to win it. So you're just left with Florida State, Clemson, NC State as usual, but everyone is reloading. Louisville aren't going to be as good, but it'll be fine. There's no standout team in there at the moment. Florida State have lost too much this year to be a standout. And then the SEC is going to be fun now the conferences have gone. Like before, you could get Georgia and Alabama to the final every year. Now you can't. Well, not as easy. So that's going to give opportunities for other teams because the big teams are going to start taking wins off one another. It's a big conference. If you can avoid enough of the big teams, because like you've got 16 teams in there, you can only schedule 8. So you get a favorable schedule. You miss LSU, you miss Bama, you miss Georgia, or you miss 2 of the 3. You have 1 loss on the season. You're 7-1. That might get you in the SEC title game if Bama, Georgia, and LSU all get one another. So, the SEC could actually become more. It's always going to be good, but you might see some more names back in the picture again with it.
I think.
So, overall, sorry, go on.
No, just the thing about all this conference realignment is it just seems to me now with the removal of divisions, and I was for the removal of divisions. But the conferences are now too big because we're talking about these conferences getting harder. SEC have added Texas and Oklahoma, so it's more competitive. And Big Ten have added UCLA and Oregon and USC and Washington, so that's more competitive. Okay, but in the Big Ten, you've got 18 teams. And if you have 12 games, of which 3 are non-con, you're playing 4 non-cons. Sorry. Apologies.
Oh, I'm gone.
It's I think it's 3 or 4, depending, but
they might just play 3. And in fact, Michigan only play 3. You might be right.
I think it's either or. Yeah. So you're playing 8 or 9 conference games.
Yeah.
Well, if you've got 17 other teams, you're playing less than half or less than half of the conference. So I think you can cook up a schedule within your conference that's still a bit of a toss-up. Not a toss-up, like a gimme, a mulligan. Like, okay, no, the conference has gotten harder, but if you're Michigan, well, we'll definitely play Ohio State, and we'll play Penn State for lols, and then we'll just pick 6 of the worst teams in the conference otherwise, because we can afford to do that. And my fear is that they all still have really easy schedules at the top, but now there's enough teams in conference to make that happen without forcing them to play the bigger teams. And then suddenly you're going to have people missing out on the conference championship with 1 loss. Because there'll be 4 teams that are either unbeaten or have 1 loss. And it's like, well, what do we do now?
You can't pick and choose. You do have to do a rotating schedule, so you play at least everyone, but you will do it over a couple of seasons. Like Michigan, to their credit, I've always whinged about their schedules. This year, they're at home to Texas, Oregon, and USC, and they're on the road to Washington and Ohio State. That is a gauntlet. You've got Texas in the non-cons. Texas playoff team last year.
Yeah.
Oregon, were contenders for the Pac-12. USC were as well. Washington, rematch of the Natty game. It's tough. And then you've got Ohio State and Columbus, and they're just going to be itching to beat them. So, like, this is what I mean. This is why it's good. Like last year, you looked at the schedule and you looked at you're like, they're going to win through to Ohio State, clearly. And that's going to be that. And you looked at Ohio State saying, oh, they got Notre Dame in South Bend, but outside of that, it's not really good. And so it proved to be. But the Big Ten's going to be better. It will take time for the teams from the West to get acclimatized and that, but they will be playing home games in there as well. So I think it'll be a kick up there. It'll be interesting to see the stylistic matchups. Like these Midwestern teams are hard, ground and pound, in your face type teams. And then you look at the West Coast sides, they're very flamboyant, let's say, in the way that they play. It's a clash of styles. What works? I like my nitty gritty, mean football that the Midwest plays, and it's more aesthetically pleasing to watch West Coast teams, but it's got to be intriguing. Like someone jokingly put the airline industry is the winner out of all this, which is actually true. Like the airlines, these kids as well. I feel sorry for the kids because the amount of traveling they're going to have to do. It takes time out your education. You're traveling days at a time. You've got to make all these trips across to the West Coast and that. I think it's going to be. It's tough on them. So, it's really a shame. The Pac-12 was such a great conference. I can't believe we've lost it in the year when it's probably been better than it's ever been, ever. It was perfect as a conference when, but we've lost it now. How many out of conference games are they allowed with the realignment? I think you play 3 or 4.
It is 4, I've just checked.
The Big Ten play 3. Big Ten do 3 or have been doing 3. They did 3 last year. They had UNLV, Bowling Green, and some other scrub team. They only played 3. Most of the others play 4. But I don't know whether it's going to change because they've got 4 new teams in the conference now. So there's a lot more intra-conference games which you need to fit in. So you probably need to move up to 9 games instead of 8. I know Michigan this year have 3, and they had 3 last year. So I would expect it to stay at that. I think the Spartans as well. They're away at Illinois, away at Indiana, or the Windows, away at Ohio State. No, it's either 3 or 4, depending on the conference. But that's not going to change.
Yeah, and I mean, so Ken said we need to get them down to 2 out of conference regular season games, but there's lots of reasons why that's never going to happen, and mainly because, one, the lower teams that get invited to bigger teams get a big payday for it, and they need that, and the bigger teams get to invite the lower teams who won't threaten their record, puts a win on there, and they get to treat their fans to a blowout, in theory. So, it kind of works for everyone a little bit. I just don't see them reducing the number of non-cons. The only way I see them increasing the number of in-conference games is if they increase the length of the season. And actually, the follow-up point I was going to make about how big the conferences are getting is one of the ways you get around that is by having more in-conference games. And then to Ken's point, I don't think they reduce the number of out-of-conference games, so why not make the season 2 games bigger?
Because you've got an extended playoffs. Teams are going to have to play 2. So you've got a second round, quarterfinals, semifinals, final. So potentially you've got a team playing 4 games in the postseason, not 2. So that's going to be difficult. If you increase it 2 games in season and they go all the way to the end, then you're playing, 4 or 5 more games than you're used to.
Yeah.
Which is the trouble they've backed themselves into, because the playoffs is going from 12 to 16 in 2 years. It's only 2 years. It's at 12, and it goes to 16. So you're going to have 16 teams 15 from power conferences and 1 from the group of 4 playing extra games potentially in a year. And I don't think they'd agree to that. And like I say, for the smaller teams, some of these big games, it's the amount to make money. And it seems recently there's been a lot more shocks.
Yeah.
Like New Mexico State twonked Auburn last year. There seems to be more FCS upsets going, mainly over the group of five, but there seems to be, a thing where a lot of these teams are almost getting on parity with them
I
in,
think
in, in some regards.
as it becomes more clear that you can breed talent through perseverance and high training at a young age, the average level of talent coming out of school is just higher. By
Yeah,
school, I mean high school. Like,
yeah,
these guys are coming out with the work ethic of Tiger Woods, you know? Like, you're going to put in absolutely everything to it when you're a child. And, okay, they may not have the natural talent, but they put in 10,000 hours. And suddenly, they are a borderline pro level player. And that just wasn't the case not too long ago. So that means suddenly there's just too many good players for all of the big teams to snap them all up, which means that even some of these guys in the group of five are really competitive now and can cause those shocks, because it only causes a bad day. And college offenses are so funky that people do just get caught out sometimes. And
yeah.
when it's so reliant on quarterback play and a good running game, or playing spread offense, if that quarterback just has an off day because they're inexperienced, which is so common, you're going to struggle.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what makes it fun.
It is. To be honest, the SEC do it right. They don't play all their non-cons at the start. A lot of them schedule their non-con games for the week before the end of the season. So they essentially give themselves a tune-up game before the end of the season where they can rest everybody. So that's sometimes when some of the shocks happen as well, but you can move them around a bit. But yeah, I'm a fan of 3 and then playing the rest as you do. But with the conferences, you just don't know anymore. Because like I say, they're getting big and they might get bigger. Like if Notre Dame come to the Big Ten, that's 19 teams. I think that's when you're going to see some teams start to move again because they're going to get a bit. This is why Super Leagues won't work. That's why we were heavily against Super Leagues and stuff. Just too many teams get left behind, and then eventually they'll want to go and forge their own thing.
Brent just said what I've just been saying makes him think of Penny Sewell coming in at 19 years old, didn't he? Question mark. So
That's mile marker.
Sorry.
Thanks, Brent.
Beg your pardon, mile marker. So Sewell is currently 23, and he was drafted in 2021. So I think he was 20. I'm pretty sure he was 20 and a half when he was drafted, and he became 21 shortly after the start of the season. It's not really possible to be 19, is it? Because you would have to go into college at 17, and you'd play 3 years. So you're 17, 18, 19. So theoretically, if you entered university a year early, you could be drafted at 19, I guess?
Yeah. I don't think not many sophomores go in. Like very few. I think in the very rare cases, it's like for the truly elite ones who just don't need school.
Well, I didn't think sophomores could get drafted. You have to get 3 years, don't you?
So see, Sewell had the COVID year. Like his final year was COVID year, which messed everything up, but it still allowed him to come. But I think it's just like been at school, isn't it? Like your birthday is the first of the year because it falls at a particular time or whatnot. But generally, it's very rare you get them. It's the right having the right birthday and the right fit with it all. And of course, off season's long, so a player can start an off season at 19. They'll be a year older by the time it gets around to playing football. So, but I am in favour. I prefer guys who've been in college a little bit longer, not too long. I think three's good. 3's good. 4 if you've been at a small school and you've come up or something like that, and you're proving yourself at a higher level. But it certainly does seem like the level of talent's going up, though. There are a lot of talented players, especially outside of the group, outside of the Power 5 now. So many of them get poached out the portal now. Like the portal's just having a weird effect on everything. It still remains to be seen at this moment in time, but like it's good and it's bad. I just don't like having so many portal. Like the spring one's pointless. Why let them go through spring training? and then they lose their best players. Like, that's just not fair.
No.
Because teams will come in last minute and hand them a bag. If they know they're struggling, if teams like an Alabama know they're struggling and they got one last spot, they'll go in and get someone out of the portal and buy them, essentially.
I do
Which is
wonder.
not fair on teams who don't.
I do wonder if the portal's going to change in a way which is like you're allowed to transfer without penalty if you played below a certain percentage of the snaps last year. So, like, I'm filing a grievance against my team because I didn't play, and that is making me eligible for the portal. Because if I'm not playing, I want to go somewhere where I play, is a very legitimate argument. But if it's like you've been given a scholarship and you're getting NIL money and you're playing every snap, they own your rights in the same way that, like, an NFL player has their contracts and they own you. Like,
yeah.
If they're going to get paid, and this is actually the problem with NIL, if they were getting paid directly by the colleges and they had a contract for the period of time that they were at the university and the grievance system of I'm not playing, let me go, that would sort all of this mess out.
Yeah.
They'd actually get paid by the colleges, who would feel like they're getting something in return for the money they're giving them, which is where we already are, but just by some backwards way of doing it. Like, I get NIL, but it should be part of the solution, not the entire solution.
Yeah. It's all messy. You should have one transfer. You should have one portal season when the season's done. Open the portal up for a month. Give people time to make decisions on what's going. Because you never know whether head coach decisions. Because I get it. Because I do like the thing where if you lose your head coach, the portal opens up for a month for you. Like, no matter when, because that you might have been recruited by a guy or a coach and he's gone then. I get that, but you should just have one portal, not in spring, where guys can move and then get ready and then you're set going forward. Like I say, if you are moving because you're not getting playing time, fine. If you're just moving for money, then, like say, if you've played more than 75% of snaps, whatever, you move, you've got to sit for a year, that's your ban. Like, you'll get banned. Again, the only circumnavigation to that should be if your coach leaves, you're a starter and you know your starting job's under threat and it's not guaranteed, then you can say, look, I'm moving for the sake of my career. But they could make it very easy. Same with recruiting cycles. I hate recruiting cycles with how they do. They like recruit 2 or 3 years before they actually come up to college and they flip their commitment 10 times. And you're just like, why?
Well,
Why?
yeah, what's the point in making a commitment?
Yeah,
it's not a commitment if you
just
can take it back.
No, it's just even worse now. It's like you're flip-flopping before you even get to college, and you get to college and you're flip-flopping again. You're just giving them too many chances.
But I don't understand what's the point in a commitment. Like, why can't it be that there is a national signing day? I know that sounds familiar, but and the eligibility to change your commitment ends at that date, and no commitments are allowed before that date. That is the day of commitment.
Yeah,
exactly. And then it just all happens in one day. Be nightmare for journalists, but who cares about the journalists? Like, I mean, flipping your commitment gives talking heads a lot to talk about because a lot's happened, but it's all meaningless.
Yeah, I know it's with the nature of college football. Like, your guy who might recruit you is not there by the time you get there, but just commit 12 months beforehand. If your head coach gets fired or the guy who recruits you gets fired before you get there, you get an exemption to open up and go somewhere else. But if not, you've made your decision, make it and stay with it. And just make it easy. Because doing all these things, man, it's so crazy. I will pull my hair out as a college football coach. Like, this is my recruiting class for 2025. I get there and I look at it, I'm like, oh, a single guy I had last year who I plan to have here is still with me. That's how it sometimes works with these. So, oh man, it's terrible.
Picking over the bones of your recruiting class.
Exactly.
I'm still just looking at this mock draft machine, looking at the one player I want to play for the Lions, and he's not draft eligible, and it really annoys me. And I've told you about him before, but the Pac-12 freshman of the year was he? Actually, maybe not. Tetrioa McMillan, wide receiver, Arizona.
He's eligible for next year.
He was a true freshman last year, wasn't he?
No. Freshman. Difference. If you're a true freshman, that's your young.
Yeah, I thought he was. Was he a redshirt freshman?
Yeah. So redshirt freshman.
Of course he was. He's in the mock draft machine. Yeah, he's okay. Fine.
He's a redshirt. A true freshman means it's their first year in college. Redshirt means they've not played in their first year, but they still are.
I got you.
And then you go on to redshirt sophomore and all that, yada, yada, yada. So, yeah, he can be in there. I think he's rated as the second best receiver in class at the moment.
Behind Luther
behind,
Burden.
Oh, Luther Burden's a megastar. Luther Burden is a megastar. And then you've got, who's the one after that? I'm not sure. It will be Eilick Ayamano. Like, he's a superstar as well. But Luther Burden's a true superstar who will also go top 5 if he does. Well, I say top 5. It depends on the quarterbacks, but you have James Pierce in there, you'll have Will Johnson in there, you'll have Luther Burden in there, like true blue chippers galore in next year's draft.
So you got Luther Burden at 1, Tetro and McMillan at 3, and then the next wide receiver is Ohio State's Emeka Egbuka. Apparently.
Oh yeah.
Emeka Egbuka.
Yeah, oh yeah, he's good. People said he had a down year last year, but he's playing with Marvin Harrison. Like, dude hogs targets. He's not a down year. And he's also a damn good returner. So if anyone wants return threat for the next level, like Abuka is really good.
I mean,
indeed.
there's just such exciting people coming up for 2025. Like,
it's just fun with new names. It's fun with new names. Like, you have all these names for the last 6-7 months with the 2024 draft. To just have new names is fun.
I mean, so there's another Michigan name, which I don't think you've mentioned, at least since I came on.
Don't say Colston Loveland. Damn it, were you going to say Colston Loveland?
Yes.
Tight ends class is terrible this year, but he's pretty good.
I mean, so he at the moment is the number 17 overall player in that machine.
Yeah, he won't be by the end of the year by positional value alone. Colston Loveland's a good tight end, but he's not that good. He's not number 17 overall good.
No?
He's not better than Brock Bowers. Where did Brock Bowers go? 15, 16?
Something like that, I guess? Don't know.
He could do, but there's too many blue chip prospects at the top this year. I don't think a tight end's really going to sniff that high. They might do, though. Michigan got a lot of good talent on there this year. Yeah, Lisa's right. They need to be 3 years removed from high school to go to the draft. So that's where they're at. As long as you are 3 years out of high school, you're draft eligible. Don't think there's any exemptions that can be made. Don't think. Small schools go through that AI. Yeah, small schools go through it worse than anyone. I'm guessing we're talking about NIL and Portal and that here, but some of the poor small schools just get rinsed for everybody. That makes it even more. Like I was talking earlier about how Chang has managed, when we talked about Timmy Chang, how he's managed to keep Hawaii's best talent there this year is beyond me. Like, he's kept his quarterback and he's kept his star wide receiver. Like, that just doesn't happen. So that speaks to how good a culture he's built there in 2 years when there was none. But you just see so many of these teams, and we do, when you hear our previews, I'm like, well, the first leading receiver left, second receiver left, top tight end left, 3/4 of the offensive, 3/5 of the offensive line's gone, and they've got to replace these guys, and it's just hard to build sustainability, even more so now with how it's done, which is, I mean, it makes it unpredictable for the group of 5 conferences because a champion can be bottom of the conference the next year with the turnover, but I just feel sorry for some of these coaches who establish all this talent. They're like, yeah, gone. UMass last year, 1,000-yard rusher, gone. He'd done nothing in his career. K-Rod Adams before he went there last year. Turned him into an 1,100-yard rusher, gone. What can you do? They've got to do it again now, like from scratch with the same type of guys who've got like a couple of 100 yards in their career and nothing else. It's not that easy.
It's not that easy. I've come across an article, and maybe I'll just run through it with you. It's about former group of 5 stars who've moved up to the Power 4, and just see if it...
Go for it.
First person is Trey Moore, edge, now at Texas, formerly UTSA. 14 sacks, 17.5 tackles for a loss last year, now with a natty challenger.
Who was that, sorry?
Trey Moore, edge, formerly of
UTSA. Yeah, Roadrunners, great team. Again, UTSA, just been rinsed for their talent, but he's going to do so well there. Like, it's nice that for draft stock, it's great for these players to be able to go and do it. It just depends. Like we had this conversation with Gerald when we were doing the HBCU stuff, and he's on
Yeah.
about all the guys who leave HBCUs to transfer. But if you're doing it for a year, no point. You're not one of their players. You're not one of their homegrown players. They're not going to advertise you to the draft. It's going to be very difficult for you. You may as well stay. If you're going with 2 or 3 years, fine. You can build your own rep up there. But I think Trey Moore, from what I understand, this is going to be his last year. So he's moving to the Power 5, which is good if he does well, but could have been a star. Because group of 5 players get drafted high. Say Christian Haynes was, but he was independent, but still, he stayed loyal his entire career to UConn, and he was one of the first guards drafted. Like, if you're good enough, they will draft you. Don't need to keep moving all the time.
UConn may be FBS, but they're not exactly a well-regarded football team.
No. I don't know. Their offensive line's very good. Their left tackle this year is like my new crush. You're not going to hear the end. Then he's like a big 7-foot Austrian, and he's massive and he's good. But yeah, I like loyalty to programs with this. Guys who stay loyal to their programs with good reason. For me, they've got the right attitude, especially for a Dan Campbell team. Like for us, I'd especially take it into note because too many of them just jump ship and they don't stay and do what's right for them. Who else was on your list?
Edge Caden Woolard, Oklahoma, formerly of Miami of Ohio.
Miami of Ohio sent a lot of talent. Their kicker's gone to Alabama. Edge has got the MAC gets rinsed, but you think of all the big teams in that region of the world, like they lose a lot of talent the MAC do. I mean, Florida, even going down to Florida State love the MAC. Like if Florida State get a MAC player out of the portal, I will immediately take notice. Braden Fisk was from the MAC. Like they get a lot of good guys out of there.
Yeah, so Woolard had a 93 rating in the transfer portal, along with Trey Moore. I don't really know what that means, but it sounds good.
It's their rating as opposed to what they are from what their production rate and everything like that. Their potential. There's a scale they use for it, but usually it's on production.
Also, there is wide receiver CJ Daniels of LSU, formerly of Liberty Flames.
Yeah, big signing for them because they've lost all the receivers this year. So guys like him are they're gonna flourish. Like Liberty sent a lot of time. They sent Kobe Singleton to Oregon State. He's going to do well there. I would have liked to see Caden Salter go somewhere, but he didn't. See what he was like as a quarterback. He could have broke into this quarterback class there. So, hello. Lisa goes, interesting. Top 5 prospects projected for 2025 are Malachi Starks, Will Johnson, Benjamin Moore, Travis Hunter, and Mason Graham. Malachi Starks he's safety 1 and it's not close. But just in terms of how good they are, that's an intriguing list. Malachi Starks is blue chip. Will Johnson is. Benjamin Moore, I assume that's Benjamin Morrison, the cornerback from Notre Dame. Travis Hunter, Mason Graham. I can actually get behind that. That's a very good list. I don't know if Mason Graham's top 5 in the draft altogether, but certainly his position, he's one of the best. Maybe.
There's a NC State player on this list, by the way. Tight end Justin Jolly, formerly of UConn.
Brett was devastated about that. UConn produced good players. But Justin Jolie is going to be perfect for it. Justin Jolie and Kevin Concepcion are just, chef's kiss. Kevin Concepcion was a true freshman last year and he had over 1,000 yards. Dude, you've never seen a guy put on the afterburners like him before. It's crazy. Like someone strapped a rocket to his back and he's not actually running. He's just letting the rocket propel him. But
what else do we have? Edge Cassius Howell of A&M, Texas A&M, formerly of Bowling Green.
You would have to ask James that one.
Yeah.
I can't get through to all of them there. Ken makes an interesting point. No QBs in the top 5. No.
No.
And there isn't. And I would just say to you, Ken, there is a reason there's no QBs in the top five. This is contrary to what you will hear right now, and you will see in mock drafts. There is no quarterback right now, maybe outside of Shadur, who should be a top 10 pick, like at all. We talked about earlier, so many of these guys need to have good seasons and they need to address a lot of issues they all individually have. There is no guaranteed top 10 pick here at quarterback at all, and rightly so. A lot of these guys are like Milrow, first year guy, Beck, first year guy. A lot of these guys are first year guys, and the guys who are not the more experienced ones, they're the ones who've come from lower levels who work in their way up and have to prove it against better opposition. And there's just so much to be had in there. So, like I say, you look at the dark horses this year. You look at Quinn Ewers, look at Connor Weidman, you look at Cam Ward. Guys like that, I think, they're going to be at the top of the pile by the end of this year, especially them three. Not necessarily the guys who are there now, like Beck and Sanders, etc. Might have been good, but not guaranteed top 5 good.
Who do you think's the quarterback who has the biggest ceiling of all of the people that you've listed? Not who do you think's going to end up being like a top 10 pick or something? Because I think that has an element of really highest ceiling.
Connor Weidman. I don't know why, but there's something about him. Texas A&M is a hard place for quarterbacks to play, and a lot have gone there and failed. And nothing was expected of him when he got that starting job there. But the way he's played against some really good opposition, he's proving people wrong. Like a lot of schools, like Texas A&M, you think of quarterbacks, you don't really think in recent history of quarterbacks from Texas A&M. There's a reason why, because there hasn't been. But he is going to buck this trend. I don't know. A lot of these guys at this point, I have to go and feel and what I've seen and my gut on them. And usually my gut's at least in the ballpark when it comes to them. But I think Weidman has, as I've said, he's dark horse Heisman. If you've got the quality to win the Heisman, you've got the quality to go top 10. And he's in an uber competitive SEC this year. I say no conferences, no bar to them. Like him and Ewers are the better ones for me, but that's just me, and I'm just a bald idiot on the internet. As I always say.
You listed defensive tackle, didn't you, as one of the deeper classes?
Yes, I did.
Just looking at the PFN's rankings, they got 5 in the first round at the moment, and that's so many more than we've had in recent years. It's crazy.
And they deserve to be there. So, this isn't Leonard Taylor last year when he was just there because of his traits. These are actually they've played well, and there's reason for them to be there. Like if Walter Nolan fulfilled his potential, he is also in the conversation for top 5. He is that dominant. Mason Graham, if he has a dominating season on a Michigan team that's lost a lot, they're going to be starting from scratch, and they've got a really tough schedule. That's going to be the great thing for the Michigan prospects this year. Plenty of exposure against top teams in hard situations. That's what make or breaks your draft stock, and he's going to have plenty of opportunity. You've got to go to Ohio State and win. You've got to beat Texas and USC and Oregon at home. You've got to go to Washington and win there. And you got to, plenty of opportunities for him to shine. He could be great. And so Kenneth Grant. No one talks about Grant. He's the unheralded one of the two. But, any Michigan D lineman should be worthy of attention.
No, there's two in the first round at the moment in this list that you didn't even mention in your 6, which is quite fun. Some of your guys are a bit lower down. It's just you've seen them more and your eyes are better than theirs probably. But Tyler Williams of Ohio State and Tyler Onyedim of Iowa State are both in that first round conversation. And I keep forgetting this whenever I come across the next guy's name, because it's the most fun name in the draft. Like, everyone must draft this guy. He's instantly a first round prospect for name alone, which is Dante Corleone, obviously. You could get to draft Don Corleone, come on! Yeah,
absolutely. That could be fun. But he's from, Corleone. So, Oh, you never know with these. Ken goes, what position group looks to be full of top-notch or best group? Well, I mentioned it. Corner is full of blue chips, but got no depth. Corner has 4 legitimate blue chip players in this draft, but not much depth. But that's where you, again, Morrison, Johnson, Woolman, Hunter. So that's great. And the Edge has it. Edge, DT, and running backs. You asked me that question. I did give it a big I don't know if you were here earlier, but I did give you my big answer earlier, so you can go back and check that.
I don't have a huge amount more people on this list. Chris Brazel, the second of Tennessee, formerly of Tulane.
I mean, to be honest, this is DT is a group where you can go from being not on anyone's radar to being on. Because again, a lot of these DTs won't be looked at in great detail yet. A lot of them just do nitty gritty, dirty work in the trenches, which it doesn't jump out on people's tape watching.
Yeah.
So it's one of those where they're more likely to come out the blue and just be really good quite early. So, you'll see these as the season goes on. You'll see more people look. Certainly I do. I love watching DTs. Like DTs.
Oh, yeah, it's the most fun position for sure. And it's the easiest to break down as well because you get reps that are pretty repetitive. You're just watching him against this guy. And yeah. Sorry, the last guy I just mentioned, I went back to my article, and that was a wide receiver who's gone to the Vols.
Oh, you're on about oh God, what's it called now?
Chris Brazel.
Yeah, Brazel.
There's also Cyrus Allen of A&M, was at LA Tech.
Yes, I think he only got like 400 yards last year, but plays in the air raid there.
Yes.
Tennessee could potentially be like Tennessee now has its quarterback. Like Iamaleava is way better than Hooker. He's way better than Milton. Like they finally have that's their Heisman guy. I know people said Hooker might have won the Heisman if he'd not got injured, but like, yeah, I'm going to be rude, but Iamaleava's like he's a quarterback who can start in the NFL. Like he has that level of talent. I just don't think Hooker does. Like he's got to be a good backup. But Tennessee are a big dark horse issue. It depends on how Iamaleava does in his first year. If he has a year like Drew Aller did, I think that was the problem I had with Drew Aller last year. I bet on him a year too early. His first year starting, it just wasn't ready. And there were too many mistakes. And hopefully year 2, we'll see what I went on in year 1. But that Tennessee team's going to be fun in a year or 2. Let me tell you that now with him when he starts reaching his full potential. Honestly, the quarterbacks now are so exciting. Like the next few drafts, this draft gone, the next few are going to be boring. After that, we're going to go back to these are legit studs and stars again. Any outstanding centers in this class? I don't think off the top of my head, like this offensive line class is not good. Compared to normal. Just hang on, give me a minute because I've not ranked my centers yet going into this year, but I'm sure a name or two will ping me if there is. I think the Bama one's pretty good. What's he called now? Brailsford. Is it Brailsford?
Correct.
The Alabama one, Parker Brailsford, he's quite good. I liked it. I think that Alabama O-line is better than it's given credit for. Outside of him, I can't think right now. I've mainly done group of 5 schools, so no. Like the center classes have been really good the last few years. Right now, I'm not sure. Like last year's center class was awesome. I think 4, 5, 6 of those guys are going to be starters in the NFL for a long time. I just gutted we didn't get oh God, the one from Wisconsin, Bortolini.
Anna, yeah.
But no, the Bama one's one to watch for, but outside of that, I'm not 100% sure at the minute.
The last player that was in this article was a linebacker for Michigan State. Wayne Matthews III from Old Dominion.
Old
Uh,
Dominion, sneaky good school.
hmm.
I love the Monarchs. Actually, they say they got rid of, well, he's gone in the portal, but he's not even their best linebacker. Like their best linebacker stayed with them. What's he called? Jason Henderson. He's a legit draft prospect from Old Dominion, by the way. He came up on my list of best sort of outside linebackers in college and that this year. He spent 3 years at Old Dominion, very loyal to the program. Ricky Ron's done a great job there. So I'm going to be watching him with a lot of interest this year as well. Might be a small school guy for next year. I mean, rankings at this point are pretty few. Like
Oh
rankings are going
yeah.
to change so much. I get people do the preseason rankings and that. Like we do our preseason teams, me and Ryan. Generally, half of them will work out. The other half will be like, "Uh-oh, really, really, really got it wrong on this one."
I mean, there's a
Um,
couple in the Edge rankings that just hurt my heart because of what I've seen from them, and they're ranked really low, and that just can't be true. Which is Jack Sawyer of Ohio State at 209,
right.
and JT Tuamalu also of Ohio State at 67. And I'm like, I've seen Tuamalu like absolutely wreck people. Okay.
So, yeah, all I'm going to say on this, this is the trouble. Ohio State, you have to judge so many things by how they play Michigan, because that's really the creme de la creme of what they'll come up against in a year, and they've failed on every count. I don't trust, like Tyreek Williams as well at DT. I don't trust any of them three because what have I seen them do against Michigan? Squat. I've seen Michigan run them over, and for me, Michigan linemen, they're your barometer for the NFL. I know there's good DTs and stuff in the Big Ten, but they're usually an anomaly on an okay line. Sorry, on the O line. They're usually anomalies. Like, you get Bortolini at Wisconsin, great center, but not a lot around him. Like you can beat individual guys like that, but when you come up against one unified line full of potential draft picks and you do nothing against them, I always mark that down. So, like Sawyer and Tuamalau, they are always ranked in the round one at the minute. Like a lot of mock drafts have them both in round one. I don't subscribe to that at all. Like I say, until you do it against me this year, more teams to do it against. Like the increase of the Pac-12 teams, more teams to do it against. But until you do it there, I don't believe you. So, and generally, I've been right about the Ohio State projects on the whole. Like their offensive line, I never get big behind them. They're good, but they're picking on a load of bad teams.
Mm.
Uh, duh, 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 duh. Tell you anything about the University of Minnesota Gophers? They've got a really good kicker. I mentioned him earlier, Dragon Kisic. He's a really good kicker. In terms of now we're going to do our Big Ten reviews soon, so I can't tell you offhand. Hang on, let me just dive into the roster quickly, and then I'll see if there's anyone to mention on there right away. I always have a soft spot for the Gophers, back to their running back days. Like Mo Ibrahim, guys like that, they always produce really good running backs. But Athan Kaliakmanis last year was just such a disappointment at quarterback for them. And he's gone to Rutgers and won their starting job. I'm so disappointed in Rutgers for doing that. Like they were going in the right direction, and then they've taken Kaliakmanis as their starting quarterback. They're going to be terrible this year. Who's starting at quarterback for them? I've
Our
no
lads
idea.
have Max Brosma.
Max Brosma. Graduate, which means that's 6th year. So that's a 6th year starter. That's not ideal.
Transfer
What have
from
they
New
got?
Hampshire.
Freshman, redshirt, freshman, redshirt, freshman, freshman. All right, so they've got 5 quarterbacks. 2 of them are actual freshmen. 2 of them are redshirt freshmen. So you're very young at the position. New Hampshire. That was Dylan Laub's school last year.
Mm.
So, but New Hampshire, a starter, and you're a graduate, and you're in your 6th year. I don't know. I will do more for the Big Ten preview. Well, I can't give you much more than that at the minute because 133 teams, it's hard to go through them all at once. But I say the kicker's very good, but that quarterback situation looks a bit iffy. But he's got to be better than Kelly at Manis. He was one of the worst in the Power 5 last year, altogether. Way off glasses. What position groups are you most thinking the Lions will be looking towards next? See, I was actually going to ask you this as a question for this. What, like, if you had to draft today, like, where would you like? Because we do four usually. We do the four most priority draft positions on here during the off season. Where would be the four positions you'd draft?
For the Lions.
Yeah.
Still offensive line. Just kind of need to get cheaper at the position if you're paying all the other people, and we need depth. Kind of fix the corner, kind of fix the linebacker. I'd be considering safety just because I don't want Branch there. And if I had to bet now, I would say Melifonwu is not going to be on the team in 12 months' time. And I say that as one of his biggest fans. But I just kind of feel like when you go into your final year and it's unlikely you get paid, if you play well and you have the opportunity to hit free agency, you'll get paid more elsewhere. So why not do that? And if you don't play well enough, why are the team going to re-sign you? Like, the route to being re-signed in his position is having a moderately good year and taking a hometown discount to stay, which I kind of hope doesn't happen, because I want him to just break out and have a great year. So safety could well be up there. Wide receiver seems obvious. With us paying everyone now, seemingly, the money for Jameson Williams is starting to get tight, especially if we re-sign Aleem McNeil. So when JMO gets to his fifth-year option, I presume we'll take it. And then that could be up for grabs. We don't have anyone at X. I already said I love Tetro McMillan. Like, that would be my guy, but he's going to go way higher than hopefully we pick. Edge. Don't really want to say it, but Edge actually might be the number one position, because opposite Hutch, you've got Pascal, who hasn't proved it yet. You've got Kamish, who, this is probably his final year with us. You've got Davenport, who's just a one-year guy. You've got Houston, who, no matter how much you love him, probably may not be on the team in 12 months' time. You hope he would be, but whatever. Who else is there?
Yeah.
There isn't anyone. So you've kind of got to draft an edge. And since, it's a pretty good edge class, that seems to align.
I think that's where I'm at. I think in order priority would be edge, edge, tackle, safety, receiver. Offensive tackle, not defensive. I'm still not sold on Manu or Sorsdal yet.
No.
I still think we need to address that. And if we are picking 32 next year, this tackle class is not as good right now. So I think that'll be better value for money at 32.
The thing I kind of don't like about our roster construction is that it's not a great thing if we're saying our draft priorities are edge, tackle, wide receiver. Like 3 really premium positions outside a quarterback. That's not ideal.
No, but we're looking for an outside. We're looking for a specific. We're not just looking for a receiver because we don't have any. We're looking for a specific type of receiver. So I feel like that helps a little bit. But offensive line depth is, you can never have too many. Like, we've tried, but we don't have a long-term solution right now at the position, as we always mention. So at some point, you do have to. We have to part with a day 1 or day 2 pick on an offensive lineman very soon. Like, we have to. We simply have to. Like, Manu might come good. Sorsdal might come good. Mahogany might come good. Not all of them are going to come good. And sooner rather than later, we're going to have holes on the line. So, like, that's where, when it comes to the preseason scouts, look especially at the edges, the tackles, the safeties, and maybe the outside receivers, maybe in general. But yeah, that'd be where I'd be looking for the Lions. Right. If anyone else has got anything they want to really sort of quickly ask to us, because we've been going 2 hours. Didn't think I would this evening, but who knows where the chat train goes. So if there's anything else you want to ask quickly before we start to wind this down, then please do. It's been good fun. I have to do these a bit more often. because there's so much stuff that goes on in college football. Sometimes it's nice to just isolate some things and talk about them. Oh, appreciate you, Brett. #1 college football podcast. I appreciate that, Brett. I'm glad you enjoy it. I'm glad there are some of you in here who enjoy it also. It makes it worth it. We put a lot of effort into it, and we're glad that people do enjoy listening to it. Lisa goes, edge, tackle, safety, maybe centre if one's available. I mean, I guess centre would be it, but I guess I wouldn't impart too high a pick on centre unless, I don't know, we're talking positional value as need, or it just still depends on how long Frank goes.
He seemed to be offended at the idea that you might retire.
Yeah. So there might be 2 or 3 years left on that clock yet. So at the minute, you would be imparting a day 3 pick on a centre, but the longer it goes along, the higher priority it gets. But, you know, the Lions, thankfully, are not afraid to spend a high pick on a centre. Like, you should spend a high pick on a centre if you need to.
I think that's the thing, is with centre, I don't like taking the middle ground. Either just say to us you don't think it's a high priority and take a day 3 player and just say as long as he can snap the ball, it's fine. Like, let the quarterback set the protections, it's all good. Or say it's a really big priority, we want to get the best centre in the league. Because I think either of those positions are fine. But taking like a round 3 swing on a centre who's going to be like moderately passable, I'm like, you could have got a much better player who's going to do more in your team at a different position. Like, go high or go low with centre.
But centre is much more valuable a position than people give it credit for.
That's true. But I think the problem is there's not many good ones, and that's why I say go high or not at all. And I think the same is true with linebacker as well.
I think you need to. Like, you see so many teams struggle. That's the general of your offensive line. It doesn't matter if you've got a generational left tackle. Centre's the field general for the quarterback. Got to trust him to protect him, to snap the ball well, to change protections. Like, I don't understand why it's such a devalued position. Because for me, it's like, it's the most critical on the entire line. Really, it's up there with tackle, and it just gets... That's why I don't like switching guys in there who've never done it. I like a guy who is experienced at it, who has got it down to a T and knows what he's doing. Because if you switch these guys in and out and they've not done it before, you just see some terrible offenses which just look so disjointed.
This was all I found on short notice, so my well is dry at this point, should we say?
No, that's fine. We've been going a while now, so thank you to everyone who has joined in with us this evening. It's nice to do this and say we'll have Ryan back next week, and we'll go back to doing conference previews, etc. We've also got guests coming on in the near future. We'll be doing our show on the Army Black Knights and the triple option. So if you want to learn about the ins and outs and the workings of the triple option, something that not many people talk about in college football, then join us for that. And of course, we're at your disposal here. So if there's anyone you want us to look at, any position groups you want us to look at, I've done it for edges and kickers this week. We will quite happily put the work in for you in that as well. Just give us a week to prep it all up and be done. But we got a lot coming. We'll have our prediction shows. We'll have all that good stuff. It's going to be fun. Might try and extend it to everyone this year, the predictions league, and we'll have fun with it if people feel so inclined to go for that. And of course, then we'll do the pick watch during the season, which is fun and grows in popularity every year. So, but yeah, appreciate you all who've joined us this evening. And next shows you can find us Roar the Lions UK, our main podcast. We'll be back on Monday. Oh no, hang on, I'm underselling this. We've got the quiz to do, haven't we? Matt, tell them about the quiz.
Oh yeah, I'm still making it, but we've got another Lions and NFL quiz coming on Sunday evening sometime. I'll be going to Thorpe Park on Sunday day, so I'll be coming back off a day of thrill seeking to tease you all with questions. If you get more than 50%, you're really good at trivia. So yeah, come and have a go. It's good fun.
Yeah, there we go. That's good fun there. I don't know what we're doing for the next main show. I don't know do we have that? No. If again, sort of we're in this really awkward part of the off season right now where it's tough to do a lot
Training
of
camp
things.
isn't here yet. That's the problem. I'm going to
And
try
we don't
and
like
get
that we-
some panels together or some Lions content people potentially.
Yeah, we don't like doing boring things. We like to prep ourselves for it. So, I mean, the Q&A the other day was nice. You can relax, just let your hair down and just, go with the flow in the evening. But yeah, what you want us to do for the Lions stuff, just hit us up, let us know. That's great. And then, as I say, me and Ryan will be back next week. Probably be moving on to the Sunbelt previews next week. Sunbelt, Funbelt. And we get a lot of our actual college football fans from over in America, like actual other people will come in and watch those because the Sunbelt's very well supported. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. But it's going to be a great conference next year. Got to enjoy it. And then, yeah, we'll see that in future. So yeah, thank you for everyone who's joined us. Thank you to everyone who gave me questions to pre-prepare. Thank you to everyone who's asked me questions this evening. I've been your host, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon. Have a great day. Enjoy Independence Day, everybody. We have the small matter of electing the next leader in this country on Thursday, and yeah, got to get through that. So it's a fun day. We're stealing your day. Independence Day. It's Independence Day for us Brits from the Conservative Party. So yay, we're all going to celebrate freedom. But yeah, thanks ever so much. Thank you, Matt, for joining in. You're going to have to come and join us more often. It's all good fun having you in here. And yeah, one pride, worldwide.
One pride.